I think all people are capable of evil. I certainly am, and I think all of us are capable of genocide. I believe that because I know what human nature is. But there's only one country committing it right now. I mean, we don't need to guess. Is the Israeli government evil? Yes. I mean, obviously.
Welcome on in, everyone. This is the Dissident Debrief, and today we're going to be reacting to a clip from Tucker Carlson show about Benjamin Netanyahu's most dangerous idea yet. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
Murdering children is evil, no matter who does it, period. They don't get a pass. It's a universal standard. So the idea that we would merge with that of all militaries.
Well, again, I agree with that, Tucker. And you know, I wouldn't want to merge with any military. I don't even like NATO for that matter.
I totally agree.
Because I don't want anybody acting and trying to drag us into conflicts. You know, our founders warned, beware of foreign entanglements.
Yes.
And what they're talking about right now is a provision in the National Defense Authorization Act, Section 219, which essentially is the merging of the U.S. military with Israeli military as far as technological projects, all intelligence sharing, and Benjamin Netanyahu has been doing all the shows talking about how he wants, how he's always been for drawing down the aid to that Israel gets to zero. But what they're actually talking about is in this new Section 219 amendment, a part of the National Defense Authorization Act, going from aid to partnership. And this really puts American sovereignty into peril if this goes into play. And the reason why they're going for it now is because um, the Israel lobby and Benjamin Netanyahu, they know how politically toxic uh, our relationship with Israel is. And so they figure they need to get this legislation passed while they have some support within Congress, because if they don't, they might get their aid funding, which happens yearly, cut off eventually. And so they want to just switch it to a full partnership and make the US committed to all intelligence sharing and new project development.
We were warned about that. And they had the vision to understand that the United States needed to protect its independence, to protect its sovereignty by not getting drawn into conflicts in other countries on behalf of other nations, not on behalf of ourselves. You know, I'm for defending our country, but now where we're at is that we're on the threshold of forever wars.
And I think I'd interject here and say I don't think we're on the threshold of forever wars. I think that we've been in forever wars ever since World War II, when the United States became the superpower, and we became very concerned with stopping the Soviet Union and the spread of communism. Essentially, the US has been at war ever since World War II. We have Vietnam, Korean War, um, uh, war in Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia. We've been in the Middle East, and then especially in the last 30 years with the war on terror, we've just always been at war. So we're not on the cusp of forever war. We're already in that process, and it probably would get worse if we cement or further deepen our ties with a foreign government.
I don't think Donald Trump went into office with the idea that, we're going to have more wars. He promised we don't, no more wars. He made that promise, but he couldn't keep that promise because of the influence of this particular group. And that's really sad. It's really sad.
I saw it firsthand. It's the saddest thing I've ever seen in public life, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the hard things to stomach is for about 10 years, like in the 2016 run up, Trump had this big moment with Jeb Bush on stage talking about how Iraq war was an utter failure. And you kind of wonder, like, you look back, like, was it always a charade? Was it always just, was this always part of the plan? I don't think it necessarily was. But when he when he was running for his second term, and he really needed help to get him over the finish line. He took a lot of money from APAC, Israel Lobby, and then individual contributors like Miriam Adelson. And when you take that amount of money, he kind of like surrendered some of his decision making power, unfortunately.
Who are the people pushing this?
Well, it's very interesting. There was an iteration of this bill that was introduced into Congress by 2 members. Didn't get much attention. But this was folded into the bill. Nobody knows who put it in. That's number one. Number two, no hearings on this part alone. There's been no hearings and no real discussions about it. I mean, you and I could talk for an hour or so easy on this. Between us, there's more discussion that's occurred on this bill than any place in D.C., by far. They don't want to talk about it. They just want to quietly slip this provision into a bill without debate. Remember, they shut off any hope in the Rules Committee of a debate over an amendment by Tom Massey and Ro Khanna. They had an amendment up. They didn't even include it in the list of amendments that would be made in order when they go to the floor. There was no debate in the committee over this. And so, when it gets to the floor, then there won't be any debate over this provision. Unless somebody gets up and says, well, this provision, but there won't be an effort, an amendment to strike it is not in order. So it stays in the bill.
And that's a really frustrating thing, is just how much our Congress people have sold us out. I'm obviously, this is a right leaning channel, but left, right, there has been historically bipartisan support for just unanimously supporting Israel or Ukraine. If it's domestic policy like healthcare, housing, serving like homeless people, it's always, oh, we don't have enough money. But then as soon as there's a new war, like we saw this like with the Ukraine war, I think a lot of Republicans were against it. At least the people were, but then the Congress people showed that they were just both right wing and left wing. Congress was in full support of supporting Israel, and then October 7th happened, and they were in full support of Ukraine, funding Ukraine to prevent Russia. Russia is still this boogeyman for a lot of the Congress. And then after October 7th, it's, open up the checkbook for Israel, unconditional aid.
People have to understand this is being engineered quietly, but no more, to try to just slip it in, make it accomplished thing, and then all of a sudden here we are. And the thing that
we don't know who pushed it?
Well, we know whose idea it was. Benjamin Netanyahu. He's taking credit for this.
He has?
He says his idea.
Yeah, I think Benjamin Netanyahu's office drafted it up, and then they sent it over to a congressperson who's obviously very pro Zionist, and is APAC supported. And this congressperson introduced it, so it's almost like foreign legislation introduced by a introduced by an American congressperson, and they're just trying to slip this in.
Yeah, and why would Netanyahu want this? Because Israel is going to have every possible advantage they could possibly have in terms of weapons enhancement and AI targeting and lower operating costs, right? You get to offload your operating costs onto the U.S. They can entangle the U.S. into things. All of a sudden, you want to fight me, buddy? Here's me, buddy, and you're off to the next war.
Without the Congress ever debating it, no one going on the record to support it, it would just all of a sudden become part of the system. It's embedded in the way the U.S. government operates. They just can effectively control 80% of our discretionary.
No committee.
That's exactly right. If this goes through, it fully enmeshes us. It's really hard to untangle. And essentially, what they're going to do is the U.S. Military, Israeli military, they're going to look at all of their kind of like line items, projects that they're working on, and they're going to opportunity cost it. You know, we would do one thing, Israel would do another. Bilateral communication and intelligence sharing. And one reason this is an issue is because, let's say, um, there's a conflict that is not in the best interest of America, but Israel is really for it. They could go ahead and start a war and then hold this whatever project that they have taken on their own because of like the opportunity costing. They could say, you have to join us, otherwise we're not going to give you these things that you need, that you have surrendered control to us on.
Hearings, no debate, in the bill. There you have it. One of the most serious changes in American sovereignty in the history of our country would occur without any debate at all. It just folded into a bill that's probably close to 1,000 pages.
Could this happen soon?
Well, here's what's going to happen. On the Congress comes back on July the 13th. The Rules Committee will try to meet again. The reason why it didn't get voted on this last time is there was a dispute. The White House wanted the SAVE Act that deals with curtailing certain voter registration privileges. They wanted the SAVE Act folded into the National Defense Act. And so they pushed the House leadership to combine that. And in order to make that happen, the House has to first pass a rule. Every bill can have its own rule. It's like, what are the rules of debate for this particular bill, this piece of paper? So they create the rule, and the rule said, it did not include that amendment that would amend out this Section 219. And but what it did do, it's combined the SAVE Act and the NDAA, so it gets.
You don't get voter ID unless you hand the military to Israel.
Yeah, and if you guys are watching this, there was a vote on it, and it thankfully it didn't pass, and that's one of the reasons why Trump gave that big speech on China being a heavy influence in the 2020 election. There's that speech on voter fraud and election integrity, and those are important things. But that is a way to rally people up to try and get the SAVE Act passed. A lot of people don't know, or like don't pay attention to these things every single day. But little do they know that Mike Johnson and House Democrats have tried to fold in the SAVE Act, which a lot of Republicans want, with this more obscure NDAA Section 219 bill. So it's really quite a mess.
No, that's an interesting reduction. No.
Well, everything's a reduction in politics.
Yeah,
right. But they can make that case.
That's interesting. But let me just say that it didn't. The rule was voted against because 14 Republican members didn't like the way the thing was set up. So the rule went down, which meant they couldn't get to the bill. So there was no vote, a week or so ago. But so they'll go back to the drawing board. They'll go back to the Rules Committee and come up with a rule. Will they include an amendment that could be voted on to determine whether or not Israel and the U.S. military should merge? I doubt it. It'll go to the floor again. So people are going to be faced with an up or down vote. That would be my guess. It's a guess. An up or down vote on the bill itself. I mean, I'd recommend voting against it and keep voting against it until they take that provision out.
And one of the dangers of this particular bill, I was looking into it, and it is what's called like a must-pass bill. So it just has to get voted on over and over and over. And I think with the way that like the House works and like there's the like whipping representatives where they like whip the votes to get enough votes. I think if if enough votes happen where it fails, I think over time, the people who are in support of the Save Act and NDAA Section 219 passing, they could probably lean on the no votes and they cut them some type of deal and chip away at the no votes and eventually get it across the finish line, which is kind of scary.
But that could pass this month.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you stop it?
Well, votes. I mean, people have.
But if you're not in Congress,
people have to call. This is where we're not helpless. You know, people or voters who, and were watching this from across the country, call your congressman or congresswoman and say, look, we don't want to merge the military. Vote against the bill or take it out of the bill. That's it. I mean, it's, as I said, I wouldn't vote for this bill anyway because of how it vitiates.
But it's treason. It's literally treason. You're handing your government to a foreign government against the will of your own people who pay for everything. I mean, my view is if there was ever a justification for shutting down Washington, it's this. And yet it doesn't seem like there's any way to stop it. Call your congressman. Does that matter?
Sometimes, yeah, sure. I mean, if the people get enough calls, they get nervous. And when they start getting nervous and there's a slippage in votes, yeah, I mean, it can make a difference. Absolutely. Sure, it can make a difference. Now,
And I think calling senators, calling congressmen really is the only thing that we have left. You just gotta flood the phone lines and kind of hope and pray that this doesn't pass.
given APEC's influence, will it make a difference? I don't know, but
But you won't need APAC after this.
No. I mean, well, I mean, one would
Dehumiliating control and all that, I get it. But like as a practical matter, it's done.
Well,
after
wait
this.
a minute. This is interesting. There are people who are now talking about, well, we're gonna cut. We won't give Israel any military funding. They don't need any military funding. They're in the inside now. They can direct the expenditures of over $1 trillion. What do they need a tip of $4 billion for when they can have influence over 1.5 trillion? Watch that. You'll encounter people who will tell you, "Oh, we're going to eliminate the military spending to Israel." Really? And you're going to bring them into the decision-making position in the Department of Defense for the most sophisticated spending that exists for the future national security and future defense of the United States of America. Whoa.
So that's why.
Yeah, it's a really clever trick. Benjamin Netanyahu is so proud of himself. He's been on all of the shows, and it's a clever trick. He's like, yeah, we really actually we don't need the aid anymore. We don't want the aid. And it's like, while one hand is doing one thing, while the right hand is saying, hey, look over here. Like we don't need any more aid. The left hand is working on legislation to merge and actually upgrade their deal.
You see these Israelis and their agents in the United States saying on television, maybe we should stop taking military aid from the United States.
There you are. There you have it.
The lying is just, it's like every word is a lie. The cost of living is already making it hard to live.
That's what I have for you guys today. Obviously, if you can, call your representative, call your senator, and keep tabs on this story. Like the NDAA 219 needs to be cut out. If this goes through, it's going to be incredibly difficult to untangle. But that's what I have for you. Benjamin Netanyahu's most sinister plan is almost ready to imperil America's sovereignty. This is the Dissident Debrief. If you like this video, consider giving it a like, hit the subscribe button, and hype it if you can. See you in the next one.